the question really is a question of brand story. So does a brand really, is a brand losing anything for not paying for exclusivity? Let me explain the context. So let's say, for example, you have an influencer that is well known, but that spends, that publishes about 16 to 15 brands a day, for example. So do you guys think it makes sense? It's a model that really makes sense? Or do you think it would be better to minimize for maximum impact? We know that attention span is something really difficult to maintain today. So what do you guys, panelists, what do you guys really think about that? Do you think it's better for influencers to focus enough 2 or 3 brand engagement, on their platforms a day? Or do you think it does not matter? They could have as many as they would like to.
Sure. I think it's both and. I think from the influencer side, let's be very practical. Unless you are, the mega footballer who can charge millions of dollars, for our micro, even our big tier 1 influencers in market, it's impractical to gain only one brand engagement. I think the key is for influencers to engage brands that actually resonate with their follower base. So even if they're presenting multiple offerings, then it makes sense. And I'll just add a little bit from a psychological perspective. We have something called a reticular activating system in your mind, which basically says you look for the content that you need at the time, or you look for information on what you need at the time. So if an influencer has wide reach, then it's okay for them to do multiple people, because if their reach is wide, then the people who need to see it will see it. If they have a smaller niche, then maybe they want to fine tune the brands they actually talk about.
Well, I think the influencers creative has a big role to play in this. So they can always engage. They could do a huge number of brands. Our advice to influencers is always to be very creative about how you plug in your brand. They should be very natural, very authentic, because there's the reason why your audience has chosen to follow you. So you might have 3 different products that you're pushing, but given how you're going around it, becomes very authentic, very believable. If you're a travel influencer, then your travel partner is somebody who could be paying you, and you can easily plug that in. People know you're a content creator, so they could be asking you, how are you able to communicate on the move? So if you're working with a brand like Safaricom, then this is a chance to plug in Safaricom, how strong their network is. So it's just about how they go around it. But best practice has always been to give your audience quality content. The best practice has always been to minimize the number of brands you can work with at a given time for a piece of content.
I think the essence of influencer marketing is in the authenticity and credibility of the influencer. So, at the risk of repeating what the rest of the guys have said, it's not really about numbers per se, because ultimately, as an influencer, because I like to see the influencer also needs to see themselves as a brand, right? And if they look at themselves as a brand, then how they engage, who they engage with, how credible they keep their brand and authentic they keep their brand is what will keep them in the game in the long term. So I would say, you can use different brands, but they have to be aligned and be clear with authentically what you represent as an influencer. So that at the end of the day, as long as it's about the influencer, then Safaricom or whichever other brands are sharing the space will not feel like there's any conflicting interest, because it's authentically presented with the influencer in mind, but also with a relevant audience. So I think for me that would be my view on that.